Fight fans, welcome to the PBC Podcast, brought to you by Premier Boxing Champions with your host, Kenneth Buhari and Michael Rosenthal.
Welcome, everyone, to the PBC Podcast. I'm Kenneth Buhari.
And I'm Michael Rosenthal, editor of USA Today's Boxing Junkie.
Thanks, as always, for joining us. Another big week of boxing ahead, so we'll be unpacking a lot here. We're going to have the legendary Nonito Donaire joining us, as well as unbeaten prospect Antuanne Russell. Both guys are going to be featured Saturday night in another PBC on Showtime triple header, and they've both got plenty to say. We're also going to break down that entire card and make our predictions, look at last weekend's action, and this week on Toe to Toe, we're going to unveil our top 10 fighters over the age of 35. But first, we've got a lot of big news to go over. A lot of big news from last week. It looks as if Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury will now face off for a third time. That's tentatively set for July 24th. Of course, all of this was made possible by the binding decision from arbitration, which ruled that Fury had to fight Wilder again with a September 15th deadline. Mike, what are your thoughts on how all of this worked out?
I feel good about it. Listen, I understand that some people wanted to see Fury and Joshua. That's something fresh, I guess. And they want an undisputed heavyweight champion. I get it. But right is right. There was a rematch clause in the contract, and an arbitrator ruled that it's binding, as you just said. That's why we're seeing Fury Wilder 3. I would ask those who are upset over this, who are you upset with? The arbitrator? He was just doing his job. Fury? He signed the contract, after all. Wilder, do you really think he's going to pass up an opportunity to which he has a legal right? I mean, come on, there's a huge fight for him. There's no way he's going to pass this up. Maybe it would have been a good idea to say all along, hey, let's not get carried away with Fury and Joshua until the arbitrator makes a ruling. In retrospect, that's pretty obvious. Yeah. And finally, Fury Joshua could still happen. They just have to win their interim fights. Of course, we could see Wilder versus Usyk for the undisputed championship too. So let's just see how this plays out and enjoy what we get.
Mike, I'm with you. I think everything worked out as it was supposed to. The arbiter, a fair one, who has been used by Top Rank before, made a decision based on the facts presented to him. I do, however, want to speak on some of the stuff that's been flying around over the past few days regarding how we got to this point. One, I'm hearing a lot of complaints about how Wilder is somehow stopping us from seeing an undisputed heavyweight champion. I'd be more inclined to listen to the chatter if it was a bit more genuine, and it's not. I don't recall media members calling for Andy Ruiz to unify with Wilder after Ruiz knocked Anthony Joshua out. On the contrary, most were arguing that Joshua had a valid rematch clause that needed to be honored. Second thing is, a lot of people assume that if Wilder won his arbitration case against Fury, it would be in the form of him receiving compensation of some sort, which is fine. However, I'm a little miffed that after Wilder spent the past few months trying to get Fury to live up to that agreement, the narrative is now that Fury wasn't going to give him step-aside money, nor that Fury, or that Fury refused step-aside money, and that's why the third fight is happening now. And look, this notion is silly at best. It's absurd at worst. First of all, what step-aside money? Who is going to pay Deontay Wilder? That so-called Saudi investor money still wasn't in escrow, still wasn't guaranteed as of last Monday when the arbitration decision came down. And that is a fact. So, to the fans out there, when you read something like that regarding Fury supposedly, turning down or refusing to give Wilder step-aside money, ask yourself, which member of Wilder's team did the media reach out to? Who is telling them that Wilder wanted step-aside money? Are you hearing this from the same media members who spent months spewing fable after fable regarding the Fury-Joshua bout, all of which was fed to them by their favorite boxing suits? a Fury Joshua bout, I should add, which after 7 months still wasn't official. So why would anyone believe any of that? I mean, the same people who've been wrong for months are now ignoring what Wilder trainer Malik Scott said, which is that Wilder has no interest in step-aside money whatsoever. Instead, they are reporting what the other side said as fact, the same side that has told you nothing but lies, and this is just the latest one. You know, if the late Johnny Cochran were here, he would say, if it doesn't make sense, then you must dispense. And that Wilder narrative, like so many others, doesn't make sense. You want to hate, but at least be honest. Now, speaking of honest, I need your honest take here, Mike. What are your thoughts on the fight itself?
Well, of course, it's interesting. One would think after the last fight that Fury might have Wilder's number. But look how different the second fight was from the first fight.
Sure.
Maybe Wilder makes adjustments under a new trainer. You mentioned Malik Scott. And we see something different again. I don't know. And of course, never, ever sleep on Deontay Wilder's power. All it takes is one good shot from him and it's all over. That's the thing that makes him special. I think if you ask me who's going to win, I think Fury's going to win again. But this sport surprises us on a regular basis. It happens over and over and over again. So I take nothing for granted.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's just a great fight. I don't know if people realize what they're witnessing here, but this could be a trilogy for the ages, something that's talked about years from now. Now, I've seen Wilder's in the gym. He seems really focused on the fight. He's been working a lot with new trainer Malik Scott. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. I can't wait to see what happens. Now, that wasn't the only bit of big news from last week. Last Friday, Manny Pacquiao posted on his social media platforms that he'll be taking on unbeaten unified world welterweight champion Errol Spence Jr. Mike, what did you think when you first heard this bit of news?
Well, the thing that stands out most to me is Pacquiao's decision to take this fight. He could have fought any Joe Schmo for a lot of money and then just cruise into retirement. I think he's earned the right to do that. Instead, what he does is he decides to fight one of the handful of best fighters pound for pound on the planet. I hope the other fighters, top fighters, are paying attention because that's how it's done. That's the ideal. I wrote that I didn't think I could have any more admiration for Pacquiao than I already did, but I do now. I have more admiration for him. Now, I have to add, I fear for Pacquiao. I keep thinking of what he did to Oscar De La Hoya in 2008. I was there for that fight. I don't want to see that happen to him, and it could happen in this fight. That acknowledged, I choose to focus on Pacquiao's decision to take the fight. I think it's a reflection of his greatness. So I'm really excited about this fight.
Yeah, so am I. I'm really pumped. I mean, this is as good and as big a fight as it gets in boxing. Definitely at 147, two huge names with a lot on the line for both. It's just an unbelievable matchup. I see Spence is already in the gym. You know, Pacquiao is going to be ready. And I mean, I can't wait. Now, I know you don't want to get into the to the nuts and bolts and stuff, but I got to ask. I got to get a preliminary pick from you. Who you got?
I'm never afraid to give my predictions. Yeah, obviously, I'm still behind. I got to go with Spence. He's a bigger, stronger, younger guy. As I said, he's one of the 3, 4, 5 best fighters, in the world right now. I think Pacquiao might have his moments in the fight because that's really all he has these days. He fights in spurts. Now that was enough against Keith Thurman, but I don't think it's going to be enough against Spence. I think Spence is just too big and too good for him at this point. I'm guessing that Pacquiao's ring IQ will allow him to reach the final bell. He's a clever boxer, but I won't be shocked if Spence takes him out at some point.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards Errol as well, but I've made the mistake of counting out Pacquiao before when he fought Keith Thurman. Look, I don't know. Pacquiao says that the time off is good for him after 25 years of boxing, that it sort of recharges him and so forth. And if that's the case, Errol is in for one hell of a long night, a great night, and that's what I'm hoping for. And I think no matter what happens, it's an event, as Floyd Mayweather would say. It's not just a fight; it's an event. Now, here's a tough question for you: which fight is the bigger box office success? Is it Fury Wilder 3? Or is it Pacquiao-Spence?
That is a damn good question. I think the biggest name of the four is still Pacquiao. I don't think there's much of a question about that. And I believe that Spence has built a big following too. That and just the general fascination with the matchup should result in big numbers. That's another prediction. That said, I don't want to underestimate the power of the heavyweight division. Fury and Wilder also are sports celebrities, if you will, and they have a history with one another. And honestly, maybe I wonder about this than I think this, but I wonder whether the dramatic way the bout happened in the end will add to the intrigue. People undoubtedly thought when they heard the news, "What the hell?" Now they're going to want to see what happens.
I mean, you're absolutely right. I don't know which is the bigger fight. I just can't wait to find out, and I'm going to leave it at that. I mean, it looks like we're going to have a summer to remember. And with that, let's move on to the PBC Fight of the Week. This Saturday, May 29th, PBC on Showtime returns as Nordine Oubaali defends his WBC World Bantamweight title against the great Nonito Donaire. That's Showtime Championship Boxing beginning at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Mike, let's have the essentials.
Okay, here we go. Oubaali, 17-0, 12 knockouts. Excuse me, Donaire, 40-6, 26 knockouts. Oubaali obviously is 5-0 in his last 5 with 3 KOs. Donaire's 3-2, 2 KOs. The last fight for both these guys took place on the same card. Oubaali outpointed Takuma Inoue, unanimous decision in November 2019. And Nonito Donaire famously lost a decision to Naoya Inoue on the same date. Oubaali's 71% knockout percentage, Donaire 57%, which I find really interesting because I'm pretty damn sure that Donaire punches harder than Oubaali.
Oh, yeah.
Oubaali 94 rounds, Donaire 289 rounds. Oubaali's 34. He's no youngster either.
Yeah.
Donaire 38 years old. Oubaali turned pro in 2014. Donaire's been at this for 20 years. Turned pro in 2001. Oubaali's a southpaw. Donaire an orthodox. Fights from an orthodox stance. Oubaali's short, 5'3.5". Donaire 5'7". Oubaali's 67-inch reach. Donaire 68.5-inch reach. Oubaali is essentially from Paris. He's from a suburb of Paris, and Donaire lives in Las Vegas.
Yeah, some interesting stats there. Let's start with the champion, Nordine Oubaali. He's a bit of a mystery to a lot of people. What is your take on him?
He looks really good to me on video. He's a 2-time Olympian from France. I mentioned that he lives outside Paris. Having that kind of amateur background means that he has a good foundation, a lot of experience as an amateur. He also has some good victories as a pro. He beat Julio Cesar Miranda. He beat Rashid Warren. He has polished skills, and he's super, super quick. One thing that stands out when you watch him on video is the way he darts in and out. There's a chance he might be too fast for Donaire. I don't know. And he has some power, too. I actually had a chance to speak to Donaire this week, and he mentioned his power. He said the guy's got punching power. I don't see him taking out Donaire, who I think is an unusually strong 118-pounder. Yeah. But I think he can keep him honest though with his power. Oubaali is a good fighter.
He certainly is. I was there. I was ringside when he fought Rashid Warren. He was very impressive that night. At 38, can Donaire summon the kind of effort we saw him give against Inoue?
I don't see why not. I thought he looked terrific in that fight, a lot like he used to look in his prime. And I was around when he was in his prime. I saw a lot of his fights live. Spectacular fighter. Not only was he a really good fighter, really fun to watch, explosive, almost like nobody else in boxing. Anyway, so that was his most recent fight. So that's what I'm judging him on. So I expect a strong performance by him. And I was talking to him, and he sounds just on point. He said the time off gave him time to rest his body. He did this fight was supposed to happen in last December, and then COVID-19 stepped in. Then he was going to fight somebody else, and that got canceled. So he's been training on and off for like 2 years. But he told me he's had time to rest, and he said he feels absolutely fantastic. As you said, though, he's 38 years old, which is traditionally that's a big number in boxing. As I mentioned, he made his pro debut in 2001, which just boggles my mind. I think he's got more to give, though. The loss to Inoue and and won in wait, I'm sorry, he's only lost twice at 118 pounds or below is what I'm trying to say. That was the loss to Inoue and then a loss in his second fight, second professional fight. Otherwise, he's just been dominating at 118 pounds. He's physically a very strong bantamweight with a lot of skill, a lot of experience. Obviously, we'll see if that's enough on Saturday.
Well, you did say that you think he has a lot more left to give. It's prediction time. How much more left does he have to give? Is Mike Rosenthal picking Donaire?
You know, this is a hard one because I think you can make a case for both guys, which, again, that's how it's supposed to be. Fights are supposed to be 50-50. But I'm going to go with the old guy. Like I said, I think he's a particularly big, strong 118-pounder. I think that's an advantage. And I think he has enough, or he showed he has enough left in the tank against Inoue to get this done. I respect Miranda, Warren, and a few of the other guys Oubaali is defeated, but I don't think they're at the level of Donaire, even a 38-year-old version of Donaire. I could regret my pick. Donaire could get old in this fight. I just don't see that happening. I think he's a special guy. He'll probably be a Hall of Famer one day.
I think you nailed it when you use the word special, because I think he's special too, but more importantly, I feel like Saturday night is going to be a special one. That it's going to be one of those great moments. I'm going with Nonito Donaire as well. I like him on points here. I think he's going to box well enough, and I think he's also got enough power to make Oubaali respect him, and he's going to turn back the clock and give us one more great performance to remind us of the kind of talent, the kind of fighter, the kind of warrior that he is, a true Hall of Famer. So I am with you on that. I'm not with you in the prediction league. I'm still well ahead despite Saturday night.
Two game lead. I'm creeping up on you.
Creeping up, 2-game lead. It will change this week. It did get a little closer, but I'm not too worried. Now, just a reminder, everyone, regarding Saturday night's undercard in the co-feature, Subriel Matias takes on undefeated Bakhtir Jukimbayev. That's an IBF 140-pound title eliminator. Should be explosive. And in the televised opener, unbeaten 2016 U.S. Olympian Gary Antuanne Russell will face Jovie Santiago in a 10-round super lightweight clash. Now, speaking of Mr. Antuanne Russell, he is 13-0 as a professional, 13 knockouts, and a lot more. So we're going to find out in this interview with him starting right now. Gary Antuanne, thank you for coming on the show. Now, first things first, for all the fans out there, do you prefer to be called Gary or Antuanne?
I actually like to be called Gary Antuanne.
Okay.
There you go.
All right, there we go. We'll keep that in mind. Yeah. Now, how has camp been for your fight on Saturday night?
Oh, it's been a good camp, mentally, physically, spiritually. I've been challenged. Honestly, I've been challenging all three elements, mentally and physically and spiritually. We had two sparring partners come down. One was named Omar Tiende. He had a WBC fight coming up, so we was in training camp together at the same time. And the other one was, I believe his name was not Rick, but I can't get his name accurately. He was a pressure fighter, though, strong kid. I'm going to get his name for you. It's going to come to me. His name was... was it? No, you got Omar Tiende. Then you have... I want to... we just had to come back to it.
Yeah.
Because you'll think of it. Yeah, you'll think of it. Yeah. So your opponent, Jovie Santiago, fought Adrian Broner to a controversial unanimous decision loss earlier this year. What were your thoughts on that fight?
Honestly speaking, I don't think Adrian Broner did enough. I think the audience saw that Santiago fought a name instead of a fighter. And I'm pretty sure it was a controversial thing that went on behind that. A lot of people other than myself thought that fight could have been thrown either way, and not on a realistic point, because I believe that people now see that boxing is leaning towards more of a popularity, and it's not all for who's really winning the fight. It's not. It's a politic thing now.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it also sounds like you think a lot of Santiago as a fighter. What are your thoughts on him?
He's a one-dimensional fighter.
Okay.
He's a pressure fighter. I believe that he's going to bring his physical best, just as everybody does. They train hard, they work hard, and then they try to give it all they can come fight night. In my eyes, I believe that he's one-dimensional, and in this profession, you cannot be one-dimensional. They say diamond shines from all sides. You have to have a sense of adversity type of attribute in your arsenal, because you got tall fighters that like to keep you at bay, fight long. You got boxers. You got puncher boxers. Then you got brawlers. Then you got guys that short. They just like to bulldoze in. They might use their head, might get a little physical with you. Although it's a physical sport already, they might do a little bit of extra physical, like grappling, probably using their forearm, probably use their head a little bit. But you got to be well prepared for these things. And not only do you got to be well prepared, you got to be able to make the necessary adjustments on the fly, like right then and there.
No,
and a lot of fighters can't do that.
You've yet to go beyond 4 rounds in your career. How do you prepare for the rounds beyond that, the 8 rounds and the 10 rounds and so forth?
Like I was saying, I had sparring partners that came down, and we were sparring every bit of 13 rounds every time we sparred. 13 rounds here. I do 6 with one sparring partner, and I do 6 with the other. If we didn't like the performance of the execution, we'd go extra rounds. By the end of the day, you had the sparring partners coming back saying, "Oh, I'm sore. I need to soak." Things of that nature. So I know they felt my wrath. I got his name. His name is Anthony. Luriano. Anthony Luriano. That was his name.
Okay, I'm glad you were able to shout him out, man. Now, in 2019, you fought 5 times, and then obviously the pandemic hit, and you've only fought one more time since. Is the plan to return to that level of activity?
Oh, definitely. I will always want to stay active, but let's keep it real. The fighters can't be the shot callers. Floyd, he's just now starting to be his own personal shot caller, and it took him this long to get to that type of magnitude. And even still, it's like he need other people to help pull strings in order for his stuff to fully go through. You got the promotion, you got the management, you got the hedge fund, you gotta pay for the venue, then you got the EMSs, then you got the purse for every fighter that's participating on it, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The TV network, that's a lot of string pulling that you have to do on your own. Yet alone, fighters don't really make that much money. You got YouTubers coming into the boxing world and disrespecting the boxing world and making more money than some of the fighters. That's been another controversy, but we're not going to dig into that. Let's keep this topic on me and me only.
there you go. Assuming you get past Santiago, what's the next step for you?
I actually enjoy looking at the fight between Josh Taylor and the other guy.
Ramirez.
I think that that's a winnable fight for me. I believe in myself a lot. And Josh Taylor, I believe that a lot of people look at him as a big thing because over in England, he's just doing this thing. He's like this phenom over there. But styles make fights. I can beat him. If he slip up, I can knock him out.
There you go. Well,
he's been in my weight class for some time. I even tried to shoot at Robert Easton once upon a time.
That's a fight you're interested in?
Yeah.
Oh, I like that one.
So I was going to ask you how far away you are from a world title shot, but it sounds like you feel you're ready right now.
You know, if you don't feel like you're ready, that means you're doing something wrong in your gym. I do believe I'm ready right now, but it's up to the manager. We've been taking things slow. Honestly, I feel like it's been going too slow due to the pandemic. It slowed things down a lot. Mentally, I had to bounce back because I lost my older brother.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just been uphill since then. You know, I had a little chip on my shoulder, and now not only do I got a chip on my shoulder, I got a bigger flame underneath me. You know, so I want to do things more than I did before.
Great. Are you settled? Are you settled into 140, or do you see a move to 47 sometime in the near future?
I'm settled into 140. I will move up definitely in the future, but I got a mark to make it 140 first. I got a plan. They say a man without a plan shall perish.
Now, speaking of 147, we had one of your amateur rivals, Jaron Ennis, on a few weeks ago. He spoke about fighting you in the amateurs and basically said he was robbed when you guys fought. What can you tell us about fighting Ennis in the amateurs?
I believe Ennis know what it was. And honestly, that's irrelevant. Like I said, I want to keep this about me. I beat him 3 times. I made history by being one of the 4 of the legendary people who had to fight from the losers bracket all the way out and then beat the person that they lost to twice just to be on the Olympic team. I've done that. My brother Gary Russell Jr. has done that. Holyfield has done that. I believe Roy Jones, no, it was Mike Tyson, I believe, done that.
So it wasn't just one fight?
It wasn't just one fight. The first fight was in the Golden Gloves, Golden Glove Nationals. And then we had to compete again when we had our run for the Olympics.
See. Wow, that's
I lost the first night in one qualifier. I had to fight from the losers bracket. Had to come all the way back and beat him twice.
Interesting.
I didn't know that.
You know, but that's in the past. We're professional now. He got a good career going. He want to make something happen. I can see something happening in the future, as a matter of fact, because I personally would want something in the future. But that's not my goal right now. I got something in front of me, and I got other people that I got my eyes on. At this point, if you was to get him on the phone, it would sound like a grudge. It probably wouldn't sound like a grudge. It's more of a manhood thing. I want my payback. But as far as it being a robbery, if anyone wants to dispute that, go online, look it up, and look at the fight yourself.
I'm going to do that.
Yeah, me too. I got to tell you though, it sounds like one day that could be a super fight.
Exactly, and I won't entertain it until it become a super fight.
Gotcha.
Financially and stage-wise, because at this point, we will not be getting disrespected by YouTubers anymore, and popularity is key. Because I see the politics going on, see how the boxing industry is moving and going, and it's to the point I care because I'm participating in this profession, but I don't care. What I care about is executing what I need to execute when these people are in front of me and protecting myself at all times, financially, outside of boxing. Still need my brains.
Right.
I need things to be intact. And just my name.
Very good. I wanted to ask you one more thing about the amateurs. You had wins over other top prospects and established guys. Which victories or accomplishments from the amateurs stand out to you the most?
I looked at all of them the same. I believe the victories that would have stood out to me the most would have been the Olympic Games.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And I was robbed. Now, you want to call something a robbery? I was robbed without a weapon.
What
would have got from Uzbekistan in the quarterfinals. I put him down, The referee supposed to give him a standing 8 count. The referee helped him up. That was the first time I ever seen a referee help a fighter up. But he helped him up because he was from the same country. And there was some under the table business going on, some drug cocktail stuff, and they had to do further investigations, and all of the officials was from Uzbekistan. The referee was from Uzbekistan, and the fighter that was my opponent at that time in the quarterfinals was from Uzbekistan. He actually went on to win gold medal. A lot of people booed and rah-rahed at him and was mad, and they gave me their wishes to have a better career. And they gave me their luck, and they granted me love and things to that nature because they saw how the fight went and they saw how the decision was, and it was unfair.
Sorry to hear
Floyd
that.
Mayweather was good.
Oh.
Sorry to hear that.
Mayweather was good.
Sorry, go ahead.
And he said the same thing. He said that it was a robbery. It was one of the worst robberies.
That's too bad. Is that guy fighting as a professional?
He was, and that was one of the guys that I wanted to fight. I believe at MGM Grand. They didn't take the match. They didn't take it.
Yeah.
And then he started doing bad in his career, and they dropped him. His promoter and manager, they just dropped him from their leg. So I said, you know what? He's lucky. He took the lucky route out because I wanted him, like with bad intentions, on having like vengeance on him.
Well, that's that. Transitioning to the pros, do you feel like now that you've turned pro, you're being overlooked maybe a little bit as one of the game's best prospects?
Oh, definitely. Like I said before, I believe that superstars get made. I know I'm a superstar. I just need the right person in front of me to show the world that I got the goods to be the superstar that I know I am. I need to show the world that I really got these goods. Some things you just can't tell a person. You got to show.
Yeah. I think you've got the right attitude.
Definitely. In this profession, that's what it's all about. It's about showing.
No. What is it like coming from such a fighting family? I know you guys train together, but do you also study tapes together, give each other tips and so forth? I mean, how is the dynamic?
It makes things more of a second nature, because we're so in tuned into each other for one, because we're brothers. My coach is my father. So it's a second nature as far as a bond. A lot of times you got fighters that just got to listen to their cornerman who is a complete stranger, and they got to have faith and belief in them. When myself, and my brothers, our coach is our father.
Yeah.
So it's a second nature thing for you to listen to your father.
Yeah.
He say, do this, you do it to the best of your ability. But you're going to believe him. You're going to trust him. Blind faith, blind trust. As far as the training goes, we fuel each other. It's always a secretive competitiveness going on. Gary Russell Jr., he done did so many things, and he done paved the road, for us. Yeah. Fastest hands in boxing, copybook records, longest reigning WBC champion. That's a road that's worthy of taking. I want to be a champion. I want to be bigger than my older brother. I want to be a bigger champion than him. So the drive is there because he inspired it to be there. Not just himself, but seeing Gary Antuanne Russell participate in national tournaments, Gary Antuanne Russell, seeing him compete in a national tournament, moving up in weight because they sold him short. So he had to go out of a comfort zone and fight in a weight class that he did no longer supposed to be in. And he's not supposed to be in no 132-pound weight division. It was to the point he had to eat just to make weight because he was too light. But he did that because it was something that he wanted as far as accomplishment for himself, and not just for himself, just to say that he did it because he believed in his skill set. He was inspired too. And I'm in a position where I can see all of this going on, and this stuff is inspiring me. It makes me want to do it more. And I say, okay, I see Gary Antuanne doing it. I see Gary Allen doing it. I see Gary Jr. doing it. And they giving it their best, you know, and they making it look easy. I can make it look easy. As a matter of fact, we're going to have fun all together. We had the same vision. And that started to come off as a second nature type of vision. Now, that vision was something we were sharing together instead of individually. On top of that, I see my father getting happy because we are accomplishing these things that he ultimately had the vision for us doing.
Yeah.
You know, and it kind of make you think, make you sleep on it, make you ponder in this type of thought process that's ongoing. And it's all up to you at the end of the day. You can listen, you can train your hardest. Come the fight of, you got to still do what you got to do. Your coach is going to tell you what to do, and you got to execute it, and that's just that. But when things is peaceful and you got people around you that you gel with and you're comfortable around, it makes things a lot easier within that environment that's full of chaos. You know, and that's how our training's been. They're my brothers. They've been watching me develop skill set and come more mature.
No, you said Gary has the fastest well, he has the fastest hands in the game right now. Would you say he has the fastest hands in the family?
That's the thing.
Here we go.
See, listen, you're a funny guy. You're a funny guy because you're trying to pick up a scab right now. You're picking at a scab right now.
Well, I like the competitive. You said you guys are competitive, so.
But I'm not gonna give you what you want. You're picking at a scab. I'm gonna leave that vague and mysterious.
Okay,
but
we'll see.
He's down. He's marked down in boxing right now as the fastest hands in the sport of boxing.
Right.
You know, leave it at that. Okay. Yeah, it is. So you fought 13 times. You've knocked out everyone you faced. Do you care about the knockout streak, or is it just about winning for you?
I care about the knockout streak because that's a record, and it goes on my portfolio, my bio. That's something that I got the rights to say I have. Deontay Wilder, do he care about his knockout? I'm pretty sure he do.
Yeah.
Right.
When he had that one fight, he did not knock that guy out. It was a thing of like, oh man, not just to him, but to the crowd, to the masses of people who had so much belief and faith in this man. Same with Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
You know, but ultimately, you got to worry about winning as long as you win. It's about keeping your record unblemished.
Right.
That's the real concept.
Right. So I don't want to feed the sibling rivalry anymore, but there are many people believe, or some people believe, that in a family full of great fighters, you just might turn out to be the best. In the ring, skill-wise, what do you think separates you from the rest?
I would say my demeanor and my creativity. You know, it's almost like we all learn the same thing, but my creativity allows me to put it together different. Just a tad bit different. I've been watching all of my older brothers do the same punch, throw the same body shot, and deliver it the same way. But sometimes someone gets in front of them, whether it's a fight or sparring, it got a different type of tweak to it. Like they got to tweak it to be able to pull it off a certain move. And when it comes to me and me making my different little tweaks to it, I can do it just a tad bit different. And I know that they can't do it like me. Almost like the cha-cha dance. Everybody know the steps to the cha-cha. But you got one person that just got a little more rhythm and belief and joy in how you do the cha-cha dance. You make it look different.
I like that.
Yeah.
Very, very good. Gary Antuanne, we know you're busy. You got a fight coming up, so we really appreciate you taking the time to be with us.
Oh, man, the pleasure's mine. Just come 29th. I'm looking forward to give you all a show.
It's time for the week in review. Last Saturday, we saw a 4-belt unification match for the undisputed 140-pound crown, which is now worn by Mr. Josh Taylor. Taylor defeated Jose Ramirez by 12-round unanimous decision in an excellent battle where Taylor dropped Ramirez twice, but the latter never stopped coming and finished the stronger of the two. Mike, what were your thoughts on Taylor's winning performance?
I think overall he gave a really good performance. Obviously, those knockdowns stand out. The second one was particularly brutal. I was even a little bit surprised that Ramirez survived that knockout. I thought it was so hard. I think Taylor underscored what I already thought about him, that he's one of the best in the business. He's now beaten, consider this, he's now beaten Regis Prograis and Ramirez in a span of 3 fights. And his last 6 opponents had a combined record of 136-1. I think that's pretty impressive stuff. Now, I do have criticism of Taylor that I want to mention. He almost gave the fight away in the last 4 rounds because he was so passive. I don't know what happened. I don't know whether he thought he had an insurmountable lead. Maybe his cornerman told him that, just box, you got it. But what happened is it almost cost him the fight. All 3 judges scored at 114-112, which is what I scored it, by the way, meaning the fight would have been a draw had Ramirez remained on his feet or if he had won one more round. So even in such a great victory, and I think it really was a great victory, can come an important lesson. Never, ever take the scoring for granted.
Yeah, for sure. And I tell you what, I thought that he did that. It kind of reminds me of De La Hoya Trinidad. He did that because he was wary of Ramirez's shots, particularly the body punches. Then that said, I thought he was great. He's special. He's an excellent boxer. He knows how to rough you up on the inside. That first knockdown, a southpaw pull counter, I mean, that was just a thing of beauty. Taylor can do it all, but those body shots I saw bothered him, and he reacted. We saw it early on in the fight, but later on in the fight, perhaps when they took its toll, he was reacting even more so, clinching a whole lot. He clinched a whole lot, and backing up whenever Ramirez landed. He just slowed down a lot over the course of the second half of the fight, but he was still formidable even then. What about Ramirez? What was your take on how he fought?
Gutsy. He survived the knockdowns. He finished strong, as you said. He won 3 of the last 4 rounds on 2 cards and all 4 of the last 4 rounds on the 3rd card. I gave him 3 of the last 4. And he came within a whisker of not losing his titles, as I said. I think he will have learned a painful lesson, and we're going to get into this a little bit later in more detail. He repeatedly let his guard down when he and Taylor were in the process of breaking, apparently believing that Kenny Bayless, the referee, was going to step in somehow. That's what happened before the second knockdown, and the lesson is protect yourself at all times. Yeah. You'd think that every fighter, no matter what level he or she is at, that they would live by that rule, but not everybody does. Obviously, it couldn't be more basic. Just protect yourself at all time. Never let your guard down like that.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Ramirez's performance was sort of microcosm of his pro career to this point, and he's had a great pro career, but he has so much potential, to be even better than that.
Mm-hmm.
There were flashes of brilliance, and then some sprinkles of what's going on. He could never really catch up to Taylor, but he did fight well. He certainly showed that he's among the top 2 or 3. 140 pounders in the world, but he's just not that guy. Now, we brought up what happened with Kenny Bayless, and a lot has been made about Bayless and how he refereed this bout. What was your take?
Well, we discussed this quite a bit off the podcast, so we regurgitate some of that. Specifically, I just want to talk about the second knockdown, which is where it really stands out. I don't know exactly what other people are thinking, but to me, all Bayless did was that their arms got tangled up. He slapped, I forget what, one of the fighters' hands just to get their arms untangled. And at that moment, that's when he landed that uppercut that put Ramirez flat on his back. I guess Ramirez, when he slapped his arm, I guess Ramirez thought he was going to step in, but there's no guarantees. You don't know exactly what the referee's going to do. That wasn't his purpose at that moment. His purpose was to untangle them and let them fight.
Yeah, I think Kenny Bayless had a pretty bad night. I'll get to that in a second. He was bad throughout the fight. He gave Ramirez way too much time on the first knockdown to recover. I mean, it was.
We can talk about that too.
Yeah, it was. Oh, geez. I was like, what?
I don't agree with that either.
I don't know. I mean, I think there's. Because
Taylor didn't go to the neutral corner, so I think Bayless was in a very awkward position.
He gave him a long count the second time as well,
right?
And I mean, there is a timekeeper there. I mean, I think that and it's sort of the same way. I got a great deal of respect for Jack Reese too, but I thought the same thing about Wilder Fury in the 12th round. It at some point you got to wonder what's the point of a 10 count. What is the point of 10 seconds if a fighter's going to get 20, or 25? And that
I agree with you in general. In general, I agree with you. That does happen. It does happen sometimes.
And that's what I thought. Watching Bayless on Saturday night. You make a really good point regarding the referee slapping hands away, because that does happen a lot. And Ramirez, for some reason, he just seemed to relax. Like as soon as Bayless did anything in the clinch, he would just relax. And look. I think what bothered me is what Bayless sort of slapped his hand away. Then he sort of leaned in like he was going to do something, but then he leaped back. It was just really feeble attempt to break up a clinch. And Ramirez, realizing that this guy had slapped his glove away, made a cardinal error, relaxed, and Taylor pounced. However, if you're going to slap the gloves away to say stop clinching, do it on both sides. They were both hitting each other, or don't do it at all. I feel like his action was in part responsible for that knockdown, but Ramirez has no one to blame but himself. It's protect yourself at all times, and certainly Taylor didn't do anything wrong. And I've seen a lot of people saying, "Oh, Taylor fought dirty." I didn't see Taylor fighting dirty. What I saw was a smart, tough fighter. And you know what? Dirty's one thing. Did he bend the rules a little bit at times? Absolutely. Guess what? Most elite fighters know how to do that well. In fact, that it's a high level skill that Taylor has. And lest we forget, he's a pretty good boxer too. So but getting back to the point, I do feel like it was just a bad night for Kenny Bayless. He caught a lot of grief for it, and deservedly so. But at the end of the day, I don't think that should take away from what Taylor has accomplished. Like you, I believe he is a pound for pounder. I think he showed really elite skill, and he continues to do so. Each time. This time I was impressed by his boxing skill. The last time I was impressed by his infighting. So that tells me that he can simply do it all. Where does Taylor go from here?
It looks like he plans to face mandatory challenger Jack Catterall in Scotland as sort of a homecoming fight, I guess. I'm not sure they're going to be able to stage the fight in Taylor's home country, but I believe that's what they're hoping to do. Then if things go well, it could get really interesting. He could move up to 147 and face Terrence Crawford. This is what he's saying. That would be a big fight and a hell of a challenge for Taylor. And I just keep thinking, if he gets that fight and somehow wins, man, he'd be an absolute freaking legend in the UK.
Oh, yeah, he would be. And to me, he's the best fighter in the UK right now. However, I don't advise him to go up to 47. I just don't. I don't see him beating Terrence Crawford. I just think it's a bad matchup for Josh Taylor. That said, I would like to see him fight, if this fighter is willing to move up after he wins, Teofimo Lopez. I think that's the fight that he should target. He's proven himself at 140. Why not let some of these other guys come up and challenge themselves against him? There are a lot of 135-pounders who will be at 140 in the next year or so. Heck, Gervonta Davis is at 140 right now. So anything can happen. I think that's what he should target. I have no doubts that at some point he'll want to make a move to 147, but I just feel like, I just don't think that Terence Crawford is the best of matchups for him. Crawford's a pretty rough customer in there. He's super quick. He's a veteran. He hits really, really hard. I saw how those body shots affected Taylor. Crawford's a killer in there.
Good point.
I don't know if I would advise him to do that, but hey, who am I to say anything? This guy's simply doing his thing. What about Ramirez though? Where does he go from here?
Well, I think he'll be fine. First, his trainer Robert Garcia says Ramirez has no problems making 140 pounds, so I expect him to stay there at least for a while. And I think he'll be a better fighter as a result of the disappointment on Saturday. At least in part because of the letting his guard down. I doubt he'll ever do that again. You often learn the most when you lose a fight. He'll probably, I'm just guessing now, he'll probably face a second-tier guy late this year, and then maybe shoot for another title shot next year. But I believe Ramirez, he's still a young guy. I believe he's just getting started.
Yeah, he is young, and there's a lot to learn from this fight for him. Back to the drawing board. I suggest also that, he take a fight or two. I don't want to say stay busy or anything like that, but drop it down a notch or two and then work his way back up. He is one of the greatest fighters of this era, of all time, really. A 4-division world champion who will be fighting for another world title belt, fighting once again when he meets Nordine Oubaali this Saturday night on Showtime Championship Boxing at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. None other than Nonito Donaire. Nonito, first, how excited are you to be back in the ring and fighting for a world title?
Man, I'm very, very excited. We've trained very hard for it, and it's been almost 2 years. So, you can imagine how much excitement it is to be able to fight again.
Now, this you just brought up. It's been almost 2 years. The fight's been on again, off again, on again. Did that affect your training, and how are you feeling heading into Saturday night?
No, it didn't affect my training so much. I mean, when it was just a lot of frustration in there, but you can't do anything. Things happen. The training was very good. We had a lot of time to keep going and keep learning. So, overall, it was a good thing.
Nonito, give us your thoughts on your opponent, Nordine Oubaali.
Oubaali, he's a very technically sound guy. He has a great amateur background, so he has his very textbook movement, and he's a good fighter. You don't become world champion for nothing, so we're not underestimating him in any way.
You have quite a height advantage against him. Is that something that stands out to you?
Definitely. I think the one thing that stands out for me most is my power. I know that Oubaali is very technical. He's intelligent, but he's never fought a guy who can hit as hard as I can.
Now, you've known Oubaali was going to be your opponent for a pretty long time now. As a fighter, does the extra time help you prepare more and give you more confidence, or does it not matter?
I mean, granted, my experience, it's just more of like just another day kind of mentality. I just live for that moment. The present moment of being inside that ring. So, but it did give us a little bit of time to kind of study, to kind of, go over a good strategy and do it in sparring and be ready and confident for the fight.
Now, I read somewhere that now that you're 38, you had to make some changes in terms of lifestyle. Can you tell us what those changes were?
I mean, I've always just been a very healthy guy. I've always been in the gym, but I did more. I upped that more. I started eating more healthier, just being more in the gym more. Just that, and most of all, the mental health. I think the biggest thing when you get older is the experience, but then without that mental health and that mental tenacity, you succumb to time. You succumb to the complacency of doing it for quite some time. So with self-development, help development, self-help development kind of things that I've been doing, it allowed me to be very excited and allowed me to have purpose being inside that ring, rather than just thinking another exit or anything like that. I actually feel really good. And because of that mental state that I'm in now, it allowed me to be very, very excited and allow me to grow into a different fighter. And I think you guys are going to be seeing a guy who you guys are going to wonder, is this guy 20-year-old or what's going on? So,
Well, you looked about that age in your last fight. Yeah. Manny Pacquiao recently said that at his age, and he's 42, he feels a long layoff is beneficial and helps his body to rest. As a veteran in the game, would you agree with that? And does that apply to you over the past year and a half or so?
100%. That's something that I stumbled upon, that when I came back to fight or to train, my body just felt like it was working for me. There was no struggle. There was nothing in any way that made me feel like I was dragging. And I think because of the time and not fighting, because when you do fight inside that ring, it's very strenuous for your body, and you're aging yourself. And being able to get that time off without fighting, without that stress in your body, without the impact and all of that stuff that boxing gives you inside that, inside the ring.
Right. So I'm always curious about this. How do you feel physically now compared to, say, 10 or 15 years ago?
Well, physically, I think that now that I'm taking my time to be healthy, especially the time off that I have, I feel really good. I feel very rejuvenated. Back in the days, I took my body for granted and partied, had fun, didn't sleep, drink up here and there. And now I'm taking care of my body well, and again, that time off inside the ring just rejuvenated my whole system, and I feel good. That's why I say, I feel that you're going to see a guy who's very youthful come Saturday.
Now, speaking of back in the day, I was watching some of your older fights, and there are times where I watch you and I feel like I'm watching Roy Jones, like, the speed, the power, and even some of the moves. Is he someone you studied, and who are some of the guys you watched growing up?
Definitely Roy was one of the guys that allowed me to mimic, that got me to that rhythm, to understanding, to boxing, and of course my power came from studying Mike Tyson, Aguayo, a little bit of Trinidad here, so a lot of that growing up was the people that I was looking at, and then later on I got introduced to the Four Kings, with Hearns, with Duran, with Hagler and Leonard. Those are the guys that I really admired and started to get into my system of fighting. So that I'm a student of the game.
Yeah. I love all those names combined. You've brought up becoming undisputed champion at bantamweight. John Real Casimiro is going to be defending his 118-pound title versus Guillermo Rigondeaux August 14th on Showtime. Well, first, who do you expect to win that fight?
I think Casimiro has a good power to end a fight. That's pretty much where I was against Rigondeaux. So I think Rigondeaux is a slick guy. Depends on if his age is a factor. If not, I think that he's slick enough to nullify the power that Casemiro is. But again, Casemiro is a very dangerous guy like myself, that can end fight at any moment.
Mm-hmm.
Is the Rigondeaux rematch something that you want badly? How badly do you want to get him back in the ring?
Well, my main goal is being undisputed. Getting the rematch with Inoue and then getting undisputed. If he's in that line, in that sight, then yes, definitely something that I'm going to be going for.
No, that was my next question. So do you think winning the world title will sort of lure him, entice him to get back into the ring with you?
Well, that's, there was articles out there that state that he wants to fight the winner of my fight. So,
well, there you go.
That he's open to it. But again, those are just articles and coming from him, we'll see. But, knowing the Japanese fighters are very honorable, they do what they say.
Okay. What, if anything, looking back to the Inoue fight, what, if anything, did your performance in that fight tell you about yourself?
Well, I think I've learned a lot between my habits and training. I train very hard, and I've always trained very, very hard. The difference was, when in terms of sparring, I took everything lightly. I took everything like work. Where I was working with them, I was in tremendous shape. But the killer instinct was not something that I developed throughout for many years now, and that's something I learned into that fight. When I heard him, I kind of just backed off instead of going for the kill like I usually do in the past. So for this training camp, I went out and I just got bigger guys and went out to go for the kill every single punches that I throw.
Do you believe that killer instinct that would make the difference in a rematch against Inoue?
I believe so, because the killer instinct allowed me to even grow more and started to relearn all the things that I've learned that I have not applied. So just that viciousness and just the capacity of growing, the urge of growing has allowed me, because of the fact that I am aiming for that viciousness or that killer instinct, and there is no mercy.
I like that. Sounds fan-friendly. Now, speaking of the fans, I don't know if you saw this, but someone played an April Fool's joke, and they posted on social media that you had retired. Did you hear about that? And if so, what was your
reaction?
I
did, and I was cracking up, actually. I was really cracking up. All the guys started calling me. All the guys that are in the boxing world started calling me. Reporters started calling me and stuff like that, and I was just cracking up. Because that was a good joke. I mean, but knowing my personality, I'm really not the type of guy to go and say goodbye being second.
You speaking of retirement, you had told me off this podcast separately that you could end up fighting for 3, 4, 5 more years. You really don't think too much about retirement.
Well, I've always been a kind of guy that lives in that moment. I can do it for as long as possible because of the fact that I am very, very healthy, and I keep myself very healthy. All it is how much I am excited to get up in the morning to go to the gym, or to get up in the morning to run. That's the question. Right now, at this moment in time, I'm very eager to wake up in the morning. I'm very eager to be in the gym. I'm very eager to fight. There's nothing that makes me drag my feet. And maybe the moment that it does is a red light. And maybe that I have to rethink twice. But at this moment in time, I'm just excited to be fighting.
Great. Beyond becoming the undisputed bantamweight champion, is there anything else that you want to accomplish? I mean, you've accomplished so much already, but is there anything more beyond that?
No, that's the only thing that I really aim for, is being undisputed. I've done and accomplished everything else in my life, in boxing, and so that's I have not gone beyond that thought yet.
Okay. Final thoughts, Nonito. How does it go down on Saturday night?
Well, it depends on how Oubaali comes to fight, but I'm always going to be there to do what I do best, go for the kill. I've always just been that kind of person, regardless if in the past the killer instinct wasn't there, but I've always had that power to kill, or the power to beat my opponent or to take them out, and I've always aimed for that, regardless if if whatever people would say. So I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna go out for the KO. You know, whatever he gives me, I've had enough experience to counter whatever it is. But ultimately, it's gonna be a very, very exciting fight, and you guys are gonna wonder how old I am.
Well, forget how old you are. I think that's the key.
Yeah.
Nonito, it's always enjoyable to speak to you, and we know you're busy. Thanks a lot for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you guys for having me, man.
All right, it's time for Mike and I to go toe-to-toe. This week, we're going to examine the top 10 fighters today over the age of 35. As always, we'll begin in ascending order. Mike, the floor is yours.
Okay, starting with my number 10, Guillermo Rigondeaux. He's 40 years old, at least that's what they say. He might be 50 or 60. He was knocked out by Lomachenko when he went up in weight, but he came back down. He's back to winning. I think he's got a lot, frankly, still at 40 years. He did have a close fight in his last fight, but I think he's still got something going.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll see that August 14th when he takes on who's Rigondeaux fighting? Why is that slipping my why am I forgetting right now? Jean-Real Casimero for another world title. That's going to be a great fight. Looking forward to it. My number 10 is Jean Pascal representing Canada, and still fast as ever. For a guy his age, he's 38 years old. He's won titles at super middleweight, and light heavyweight, and we'll see what he does when he gets his crack at Badou Jack once again. Now let's go on.
No, I was going to say I have Pascal on my list too, so I'll talk about him a little bit later.
Well, you already spoke about my number 9, Guillermo Rigondeaux. So nothing more needs to be said. I'm curious to see which Rigondeaux shows up on August 14th, whether it's the one that boxes or the one that stands his ground and fights as he's getting older. We'll soon see, and we'll soon see what he has left. Who you got for number 9?
Number 9, I have Luis Ortiz, 42. I think he can still give pretty much any heavyweight trouble. He gave Deontay Wilder some trouble until he didn't. I think he still has quite a bit left in the tank.
I like that. All right, let's get on to number 8 then. What you got there?
Number 8 is the aforementioned Jean Pascal, 38 years old. What's striking about him is he sort of resurrected himself by beating Marcus Brown and then Badou Jack. So I kind of thought he was on the decline, but he proved me wrong, and he's rolling again.
Yeah, I agree with you. And my number 8 you just brought up is Luis Ortiz. Curious to see who he faces next. I hear his name now being whispered for a potential Anthony Joshua bout. I doubt that very much, but still formidable from what we've seen. Say for one shot from Deontay Wilder in that last fight, he looked really good in the rematch. So we'll see what Ortiz has left. All right, let's move on now to number 7. And my number 7, is it my turn?
Go for it.
All right, my number 7 is someone we've been talking about this show, Nonito Donaire, 4-division world champion. Quite the resume. And now he's fighting for another world title this Saturday on Showtime. Can't wait to see if Donaire can make it a memorable night.
Yeah, it's been a year and a half, but I think he showed us a tremendous amount in his exciting loss against Naoya Inoue. What he's able to do at his age is just remarkable.
It certainly is. Your turn.
Okay, number 7, Maris Briedis, 36 years old, holds a cruiserweight title, almost beat Alexander Usyk at cruiserweight not that long ago. Very good fighter. I didn't realize he was 36 years old, but there you have it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why the man you just mentioned, Mr. Briedis, is my number 6 for all the reasons that you just listed. All right, who you got for number 6?
Well, my 6 is Nonito Donaire. Still in big fights, 20 years into his career, just amazing guy.
I like that. My number 5 that's where we're at right now, is none other than Mr. Erislandy Lara. We just saw Lara a few weeks ago against Thomas Cornflake Lamanna, flattened him in one round at middleweight. Perhaps he stands his ground now and fights a little more now that he's campaigning at 160. But we've seen what he can do at 154, where he's won multiple world titles from the Cuban School of Boxing, the American Dream, and it's been a great run for him.
My number 5 is Erislandy Lara.
Jeez.
38 years old. You know what I noticed going over his record? Every one of his non-wins was a razor-thin decision. He could actually be undefeated at this point if things had gone his way. Really a great fighter, arguably the best fighter that Cuba's ever produced.
Yeah, without question. All right, let's go to number 4. Who you got?
Number 4 for me is Donnie Nietes, 39 years old, 4-division title holder, arguably a Hall of Famer. Still winning fights. The guy just wins every time he goes in there. Maybe a little bit overlooked, but he's good. It's really good.
Wow. My number 4 is Donnie Nietes.
Okay, there you go.
This is it's interesting.
And we didn't talk. Yeah, we didn't talk beforehand. Yeah.
We did not have this conversation beforehand, and let me tell you, the list of names was staggering. I mean, the number of people that could be on this list. So
yeah, I came up with 20 guys. Yeah.
Yeah, the fact that not just that we have similar names, but in similar slots says a lot. So I don't need to say anything about my number 4. Now we get down to the top 3. Maybe we see a difference there. My number 3 is Arthur Beterbiev, the light heavyweight king, who's having a great run. 36 years old, I believe, and still looks fantastic.
He's on my list too. Not at 3, so I'll talk about him in a minute. My number 3 is Gennady Golovkin. 39 years old, middleweight title holder, 3-0 since he's lost to Canelo. I know he's had a couple of close fights in there, but he's bounced back. He's still a factor, obviously, and I'm looking forward to seeing him in more big fights.
Yeah, well, Mr. Golovkin is my number 2. I'm looking forward to seeing him in big fights as well. What I really would like to see is more unifications. I mean, there's a report today from Dan Rayfield that perhaps we'll see him in against Murata at the end of the year, but I'd much rather see him in against Jamal Charlo or Demetrius Andrade. Either way, he's had a great career. I think he walks into the Hall of Fame when it's all said and done. And now it's time for your number 2.
Number 2 is Mr. Manny Pacquiao, 42 years old. He beat a guy like Keith Thurman at 40 years old. Enough said. Legend, absolute legend.
Wow.
Who's your number 2?
At number 2, I've got Gennady Golovkin. Who is your number 1?
My number 1's, and for me, it was pretty obvious, is Artur Beterbiev. 36 years old, you're right, he is 36. Stopped all 16 of his opponents, but this isn't like an Edgar Berlanga thing. I mean, his level of opposition was much higher, including Vosdick, which was a big win for him. I think the guy's just an absolute freaking beast. My dream would be for him to fight Canelo, but it might be unreasonable to ask Canelo to fight this guy. I think he's the real deal.
I think he's the real deal as well. I'd like to see a Canelo fight. However, I don't know if Beterbiev has the star power to push Canelo to move up to 175 to fight him. But hopefully we do see Beterbiev in some big fights before it's all said and done. Now it is time for number 1. My turn, and it is none other than Manny Pac-Man Pacquiao. I placed the number 1 over everyone else because, goodness, he's over 40. He was over 40 when he beat Keith Thurman. Most of the guys on this list are in their late 30s, so Pacquiao's crossed a different threshold, and that was one hell of a win, arguably better than nearly every other win on this list. What can you say about Pac-Man? I mean, just special, and the fact that he's stepping in against Errol Spence this summer, it shows you the kind of heart and will he has. And of course, we may have to revisit this list after August 21st.
You know what I learned from this? I sort of knew this, but it sort of crystallized it for me, is that it's amazing how good these guys are still at these advanced ages. You know, at once upon a time, there were very few guys who fought into their late 30s or early 40s. Now it seems like more of a regular thing. I think that might be true across all sports.
Yes.
Where guys are, but this is a very difficult sport for obvious reasons. These guys take poundings. Donaire's been doing this for 20 years. Pacquiao's been doing it for how long? 25 years?
5 years. And we didn't even include the 35-year-olds. I mean, that would double or triple this.
You know what? You're right. Because when I was doing the research, I was looking at 35 years old. There must have been 7 or 8 35-year-olds that would have been on this list. So yeah, we're talking like 30 guys.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a little bit different. It's interesting also though is that a lot of these guys, you can see the decline. You can see that they're not quite what they are, but they're still good. That's what's interesting.
Yeah, they still are. I mean, half of these guys have an argument for being on pound for pound list, and some of them are on pound for pound list. So what can you say? Looking forward to what the rest of 2021 is going to bring us. And that is going to do it for this week's show. Thanks as always, guys, for listening. Don't forget Saturday night on Showtime, a PBC triple headliner, headlined by WBC bantamweight world champion Nordine Oubaali defending his belt against the great Nonito Donaire. Action begins at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Be sure to like and subscribe to the PBC Podcast wherever you're listening. Leave a comment if you feel inclined, and most important, come back next week for more interviews and more boxing talk right here again on the PBC Podcast.